We had a question from Sharon from Adobe. As an experienced partner operating globally, what are the main pitfalls for a company migrating from M1, and how can a company ensure everyone is on board? What should the discovery process look like?
All right, I can cover some of the discovery part of it. I think it's just very important that as the merchant that you allow a partner to understand everything there is to do with your current store. That includes both the coding side and the business side. The discovery process will then allow the partner, or an independent developer, doesn't have to be a partner, but it will allow the person who's in charge of the migration from the technical side to understand both what are the requirements that are in the code, and then also what are your requirements from a business side. So some of those things, when you're migrating, might already exist in Magento 2 now. And if you're, for example, going from community to the commercial version, some of those things are covered in the commercial version that would have been an extension in the open source version. So I think giving some time up front to allow for discovery, and then spending time with your developer or your project manager to review all those items that are in the discovery. And then I feel like the most important thing would be choose what is your minimum product that you can launch with and launch on Magento 2. So you're not stuck in figuring out the next best thing that you want to add, because scope creep then can really come into play and extend out the process. Vinai, from a developer standpoint, what is your take on that?
There's not. I don't have too much experience on an agency partner side of things. Just as a developer, for me, it's really essential to go into some kind of back and forth discussion over a period of time with at least somebody from the client side to really get an understanding of the real business needs there. So I really have a solid idea what problems what should I be solving here, right? What should I be building? Because otherwise it's really easy to go off-road and just end up with something that is just kind of what the client wanted, but not quite. So it's all about talking and interacting. I think that's really good. And that takes time. Probably more than just one, let's have a call. It takes days off and on talking.
Right, and Vinai, your role is as an independent developer, so you have a different viewpoint than, say, Deryck and I would from the agency side, where we have a bunch of people involved. But you also might be part of a team sometimes where you're the technical resource and are involved in that, right?
Right. So yeah, my perspective is somewhat different. I agree. I have worked with a number of agencies and partners as part of their team. It's been a while though, recently, but the last couple of years I've mainly worked in teams of developers who work directly at the merchant side, the merchant developer team. And they're also same thing. It just helps if the developer really has a good understanding, or maybe one of the developers on the team, right? If they're like a small team of 3 or 4 people building a specific feature, then at least one of them has to have a very, very good understanding and ability to ask questions, basically, right? To reach out to somebody from the business side who knows what it's about, what they're working on, and communicate. And that really helps a lot in my experience. Being part of a team with an agency, it usually just involves an intermediate step, right? So I would ask some account manager, and then that account manager would reach out to the client, and then he would come back with whatever the answer was. It just took longer, and it worked, of course. I prefer a direct line of communication to somebody who knows the business, but that might not always be possible, if that makes sense.
Deryck, do you have a take on it?
Yeah, so yeah, the question being the pitfalls and how you can ensure everyone is on board. So, I mean, the pitfalls are, and this is from, again, you know, I have my kind of merchant hat on, if you like. The pitfalls are, it's change, and you know, you're going from from people who are probably happy with the way this one system has been working, or maybe they're not, but they're certainly used to the way one system is working, and now they're being asked to go over to a new system, albeit similar, but to them it could be a big leap. So the first thing is really getting those people who are going to be using it, to get them on board, and I know it's something that we've been involved in Magento, and you know, via Magento U as well, which is, you know, going in quite early on in a project and actually training the key people within on the admin side, if you like, or on the running, the day-to-day running of the store side, and just getting them familiar with what the new functionality is going to be, what migration might look like for them, and actually getting them bought into the project quite early on, rather than almost being an afterthought. Sometimes can be the case, not always, obviously. So you know, I think that you know, bringing people along for the ride from a very early point, and not, you know, getting handed over the system at you know, a very late point in the project, is a way of making sure, you know, of helping to make sure that migration process is more streamlined, and then you've got people who can make decisions on in a much more practical, hands-on way, being able to make decisions by seeing what the product can do and what it can't do, and saying, well, this is what we need for the MVP, the minimum viable product, and this is what we don't need for that, or this is what we have to have now. So that I would say that's from my point of view is kind of training or consultancy, or you know, we call it kind of consultancy workshop, where you actually go in and you sit with a client and you're kind of showing them the product, and also getting them to think about how they would use the product at the same time, and that's a good buy-in. So, you know, if you're using Magento 1 and migrating to Magento 2, there are differences. Let's make sure that they're happy about those differences very early on, rather than later on in the project. So I think that's one way you could tackle that as well.
Yeah, so I think what I hear you both saying is that communication is the key at the beginning, that we're always communicating with the client, and that we're driving to get to some kind of a minimum product to get them live. And my view is that it's important to have your site live on the new platform, because everybody has a lot more ownership of the site. Both the client and the developer take a lot more ownership of something that's in a live environment than it's something that's not in a live environment. So the sooner we can get it live, the better.